Here I am outside for a change, surrounded by the garden. When I was a child in the 1950s, up in North Queensland, on the beach there were mango trees growing. You could just go up and pick them. This is on a public beach. There were coconut trees. There were tamarines, tamarine beans, and you could just grab them and eat them or make them into a drink or whatever you wanted to do with them. There were crabs in the sea to fish, and there were fish, and that's how it was. It was like paradise. And the world should be like paradise for everybody. The food shouldn't be locked up. Food should be available to everybody. When you have agribusiness and industrial agriculture, you get, the food gets locked up, doesn't it? The food is locked up. It's not free to everybody. Sometimes, you hear people talk about the streets being paved with gold, in an ideal situation. What if the streets were paved with food? There's no actual reason why we can't have fruit trees growing as street trees. We can't have public gardens that are full of vegetables or blackcurrant bushes. There's no the basic reason is the food is locked up, and the powers that be want to keep the food locked up. If you often hear the argument, if everyone grew their own food, no one would use any chemical. People would neglect their apple trees or their cherry trees, and the whole agribusiness structure would just be brought to its knees if people did that. If you grow an apple tree and neglect it, presumably there'll be more insects, and then insects will get out of control, the farmers say. You've got vested interest there, the big pharmaceutical companies, the big industrial chemical manufacturers, and you've got the agribusiness, the farmers who want to keep that food locked up too. Now, there's nothing to stop us from planting seeds. I mean, when you get a bag of nuts for Christmas, there's nothing to stop you from going for a long walk and planting all those nuts. There was a monk in France a couple of centuries ago, and he planted acorns everywhere. And some of those oak trees are still there. Some types of acorn are actually edible for humans, not just for pigs, but they're edible for humans. Humans can eat certain types of acorns. Imagine if you were a tribal person, and that the highways were surrounded with fruit and nuts. Like where I am, carob trees will grow. Look, these are carob beans. I would never starve. To be serious, I could never starve where I am, because I've got carob beans from carob trees. They use very little water. They're extremely drought resistant, and the prodigal son lived on carob seeds, and when he was looking after pigs. They were considered pig food where he was, but he can live on them. A rabbit can live on one of these a day. There's enough protein and and stuff for, that's what they make alternative chocolate out of. Yes. They taste a bit like dates when they're fresh, when they're new like this. And there's nothing to stop us from planting fruit trees and nut trees and carob trees. There is an opposition, though. You'll get people who speak up and say the insects will take over, and people won't look after their trees. But it's quite a radical act to plant a fruit tree. So do that. When you go for a walk, plant that mango seed. Save the orange seeds. Save the lemon seeds, plant them. That's another thing. When you go to the supermarket, you're going to get seedless varieties, like I've had a seedless avocado. Very soon you won't be allowed to, there'll be no seeds in fruit. You won't be able to plant an avocado, because the only avocados you'll be able to buy will be seedless ones. That's right, they were working on a seedless mango too, with just some tiny little embryonic seed that wouldn't develop properly. I saw it, a year or so ago. You'll have a seedless mango, so basically you won't be able to grab a mango seed and plant it. There are orange and lemons without seeds. They'll probably invent cherries and plums without seeds. In the end, the only fruit you'll buy will not be able to be planted by the old radical seed method. Yes, where I am, I've got a pistachio over there, very drought resistant. Go for a walk, plant lots of pistachio nuts wherever you go. They're drought resistant, and they can feed you, anyone who comes along. Have you ever been walking out in the country, or your car broke down or something along a highway, and you come along an apple tree or a plum tree thrown from a fruit seed that somebody threw from a car window or a train window? Do those things. Throw your cherry seeds out the train window every few yards. Throw one cherry seed like that. Throw a plum tree seed. Do these radical things, and you'll change the world, because, yes, one pomegranate is full of hundreds of seeds. Just throw a pomegranate seed out the train window, out the car window. You are doing something quite radical, instead of throwing dirty nappies out the window, like people do. You'll have a highway that's littered with fruit trees and nut trees. And this can change the world. It's not right that the food be all locked up and kept as a business for, big chemical manufacturers and big agribusiness. We all pay for it in the end anyway, one way or another, ecologically, and economically, socially. Yes. Imagine the Garden of Eden is an idea, and it can be made true. That beach back in the 50s where I was the Garden of Eden. It wouldn't be like that now. It would be full of tourists and everything. Yes, it was a Garden of Eden. Imagine going for a walk and just picking the mangoes you wanted, picking up coconuts off the beach, catching crabs for your lunch, and eating tamarines. That's how it was. That's how it can be, and that's how it should be. If you walk along a highway normally, just like in Sydney for example, you're going to see these big grass nature strips that are probably kept down by big lawn mowers and weedicides too. There's no reason that you can't have fruit and nut trees everywhere. If just people decide that that's what they want to do. If you go to Woolworths or any other big supermarket, you'll find they'll have a red apple and a green apple, usually, and about 2 varieties of apples. When I was a child, there were dozens of varieties of apples. In 1900, there were hundreds of varieties of apples. Now, if you go to Woolworths, there's only about 1 or 2 apples that you can get. A red one, a green one, and maybe Golden Delicious or Pink Lady. There's only probably 2 or 3 varieties of apple available. There's only 1 variety of banana, that's usually available. This is all monocultural. That's another thing. If you want a tomato, the tomato will be hard. A hard tomato that lasts well in the shop but has no flavour. This isn't the way things should be. Strawberries aren't meant to be crunchy. They're not. Strawberries aren't meant to be crunchy. Anyone who's tasted a strawberry grown in their backyard from one of the old varieties of strawberries, as I have done, know that strawberries aren't meant to be crunchy like an apple. The strawberries you buy now are crunchy like an apple. That's not the Garden of Eden. They've invented a strawberry that's about as big as an apple too now in Australia. I don't think it's come onto the market yet, but it's as big as an apple. And imagine once they package it, you'll be able to sell it in a box, won't you? Yes, do that. Get that bag of Christmas nuts and plant them. Although Brazil nuts only grow in Brazil because they need some special fungi. But there's hazelnuts will grow easily. Pistachio nuts will grow, not the salted type. Walnuts, pecan nuts, almonds, yes. Give the shell a bit of a crack with a hammer, just a small crack to help it germinate. These are things anyone can do. I can hear Kitty.